Good evening, church. Great to see you all. If I haven't met you before, I'm Mark, one of the pastors here, and every 5 or 6 weeks, if you know the rhythm of our church here, you would know that we usually have an opportunity to sit on these chairs and we have a chat to someone from our church community, which is always wonderful. I get great feedback from many of you, how great it is to, yes, hear from Pastor Matt and our other pastors, but every now and then to hear from someone else, hear a story, hear what God has done in someone's lives, how God has changed and transformed someone, hear their story of conversion. For many nights, we've told stories of those who have gone on mission. I know that the last time we did this, we had the Shorts, and they shared their story of 50 years of serving God. Well, this gentleman that I have to my right has been maybe not serving God for 50 years, but getting pretty close.
86 was when I started serving the Lord.
Yeah, wow. When you were 6?
86.
1986. 1986.
Not 86 years ago, though I might look that.
Yeah. But we'll introduce you to who I have here with us tonight, which is great. So Guryel Ali has been part of our church with his wife Cheryl and son Christian for about 5 years.
Yeah.
Formerly was a pastor at Cardinia Church. He's a real creative.
Yeah.
He's written songs, and obviously that guitar is for you, not me.
Yes.
Do you know anything about me? I'm no way going to be playing guitar tonight. Well, I could try, but people are going to leave pretty quick. But it's going to be great to hear from you a little bit later. You were on 96.3 for about 10 years in the morning.
That's
that
right.
Must have been pretty tough getting up early. What
Yeah,
time are you?
I guess so. It was. I don't know if anyone remembers listening to me on the radio. Do you? Anyone here? Oh,
couple of fans there.
I see that hand.
Yeah.
So that was fun, Mark. Yeah, it was good fun. It was a good way to serve the Lord.
Yeah, it's great.
Because that's what it was.
Absolutely.
In fact, I think all of life is service once you give your heart to the Lord, don't you?
Yeah, well, I love that. And you're going to talk a little bit about your journey tonight, because you didn't grow up in Australia, you didn't grow up in a Christian home.
No.
So just talk a little bit about that. I know I got a little bit of supper there. I know tonight we have got, which I'll talk about at the end of the night, we got some supper happening after the service, which is going to be wonderful.
Yeah.
But you got something that's quite close to
Mark
your heart. What's that I brought along this morning and tonight?
Beautiful baklava. I don't know if you can see that, can you?
Baklavas.
There's 4 pieces in there. I don't know how 4 will go between 100, but anyway.
So just that's something that you grew up with?
Well, you've done that intentionally, haven't you? Wow. Because I come from a Turkish background. So mum and dad were from Cyprus, a Turkish part of Cyprus. So, and they moved from, this is way back in the 50s, they moved from Cyprus to England, because during those years, Cyprus was under British rule, and the Cypriots could go freely over to England and work, and that's where I was born, in England. But going back to this baklava, my mum cooked the most beautiful baklava. Like, it was really seriously good. So she was just one of the world's great cooks, which I didn't realise. You know, you don't know what you've got till it's gone, right?
And we're going to hear a bit about that, even for you, your heritage, and even some of the meats, kebabs.
The kebabs, yeah, she was just great with meat. She cooked the most beautiful stews and broths, but I remember her cooking baklava, and so she would, put out layers of phyllo pastry on it in a square pan, and she would just she'd put a couple of layers of phyllo, and then brush it with melted butter, and then do that about 10 times. And then she would put a beautiful nut mix, like walnuts crushed, almonds crushed, with cinnamon and nutmeg and sugar, of course, and put a big layer of that on. And then she would double up on the pastry, and then she would cut it up before she put it in the oven. She put it in the oven, and while that's in the oven, baking and going golden brown, beautiful colour, she would be boiling up this rosewater syrup. Anyone know what rosewater is? Yeah, it's a lovely, lovely thing. It's a bit like cordial, but it's really made out of roses. And then she would pour this syrup all over the baklava when she got it out, and it just dripped.
Well, it sounded like home life was pretty good eating that, but really, for you growing up, it wasn't.
It wasn't, yeah. So we get born in London. When I say we, so Mum and Dad moved to London, and when I say we were born there in London, because I have a twin brother, Mark.
You do, and I think we got a photo of your twin. There he is. I don't know which one's you.
Yeah,
I was going to guess this morning,
I don't know
and I actually didn't get to guess, but I'm going to do that tonight. I think you actually don't know which one's you.
I don't know.
Really?
I really don't. Is that funny? I don't know.
I reckon you're on the left.
I reckon I'm on the right.
So you are actually...
I don't know. So that's my twin brother. Now, his name is Gursel. So my name is Guryel. Gursel is Gursel. And so when I was born, they didn't know I was coming. In those days, they didn't know. There were no scans, nothing. The doctor would just feel the mother's tummy and that's it. And so I came out, and all they did was change the S in Gursel to Y. So Gursel was the name of the Turkish president at the time, and Guryel means strong spirit, which is a nice thing, right? But these phonetic languages, they also translate, spirit can also be translated as breath and wind. So it could be strong breath or strong wind, which is probably right.
That's great.
Don't you reckon?
That's great.
If you're around me long enough, you'll know that's right.
Yeah, that's very true. So moving to Australia...
we moved to Australia. Our family seemed to be functional in England, but when we moved out here, so in the 60s they had this Populate Australia program where they asked skilled migrants from all over the world to come. So the Greeks came, the Turks came, the Italians came, and the deal was you bring your skill and your family and we'll pay for your journey, and you just pay $20. So that's why we were called 10-pound poms, So we arrive in St Kilda, and we're only a block away from Luna Park, which was magnificent. We were 7 years old, my twin and I, Gers and I. And so it was like, wow, look at this. And the beaches were yellow and beautiful, and we lived across the road from the beach on the Esplanade. And so it was fantastic. But home life was terrible. Mum and Dad started fighting pretty badly. So I come from a Muslim family, just so you know. Turks are Muslims. It's majority Muslim country. And so my story of conversion is this is what we're going to talk about tonight, really, aren't we? Is my conversion from Islam.
Absolutely. So for you growing up, you said that you were living in Australia, yes, you're at the Luna Park and everything's great.
Yeah.
But things that were at home was tough. But also the fact that even moving to Mentone after St Kilda.
That's right.
Just being amongst
Australians,
Aussie kids, wasn't easy for you. Just tell us about that.
Yeah, it wasn't because all of the Europeans, all of us that came from immigrants, we didn't have the same faces. We, as you saw, our features were our hair was black, and our features were different. European And so, like in my school, my brother and I were the only Europeans. We were the only foreign. They used to call us foreigners, and worse. But I'll let you think about that. But that's what they used to call us. But today, I look at Boaz's beautiful face, right, and all of the different nationalities that are represented here. It was not like that. Like if I went to a church when I arrived, it would all have been Anglo-Saxon faces. Now, look, some of that was like light-hearted, teasing. I mean, some of it did stick, So, but you'd brush it off pretty quick. Because it wasn't the racism, that we would see civil rights movement in America or South Africa, That was pretty full-on racism. But, even with the teasing and the differences, we could see Australians were beautiful people. and we knew Australia was a beautiful place to be, basically. And we just worked hard and got on with it,
And you're being kind, but I think there is a reality for you growing up, and you shared that when we caught up, that it wasn't easy to fit in. And to try to fit in, you were, in a way, pretending.
I was forced to become an Australian very quickly. So I came from London, and so, I came speaking like a pommer, you know what I mean? So I talk like that, and I had to let go of even my accent really quickly if I was going to be accepted. I knew, it wasn't long before I was saying, "Can the Lions, g'day mate, how you going?" But, in a baby's voice, of course. But we had to really assimilate quickly, and mum and dad's fights were so bad that it ended in divorce. And dad then, so we're in Melbourne, we're in Melbourne. Dad leaves Australia and goes back to London, which was, really home because all of his family were there and stuff like that. So Dad left, and when Dad left, I still remember the last day I saw Dad. I didn't go here this morning, did I? I still remember the last time I saw Dad. He really was, he really did try. I think about that, but, it just didn't work. And Mum and Dad's relationship was destroyed. But he got down on one knee and he looked me in the eye because, I was just a little boy and skinny little, am I allowed to say wog? I was just a little skinny little wog boy. And I could see he was choked up. I knew this was going to be he knew, I didn't. He knew this was going to be our last goodbye. That was the day he left. And he hugged me and said, "Goodbye, babam." So baba is our Turkish word for father. Yep. So the children would call their dad baba, and the dads would return by saying babam. They'd add an M on the end, which means my little one, my child. So babam, it's a strange thing. It's like saying bum with a stutter, isn't it?
So you're a young adult. I think we got a few photos of you, Guryel, when you're a young adult, just hanging free.
Part of my journey was I ended up, there we are. I ended up playing footy to a pretty good level. Never like you, the level you played at, but I was pretty good. I was short, and the kids won't know, but they used to call me Vinny Catoggio.
There's a bit of a classic old footy card.
So there's Vinny Catoggio. He played for Carlton, and they used to call me Vinny, which was better than Wog Boy.
So there's a bit of a theme here, mate. Because it seems like through that period of time, just feeling accepted.
Yeah. It was all about, that's what it was all about. So I got into surfing. I got into all of it. I just followed where it was. I just followed. I just needed to be accepted, and got into the sex and the drugs and the rock and roll and all of that. But I knew that it wasn't right because growing up a Muslim, we had quite a high moral standard. Even the Turks are different, a little bit different than other Muslims. There are a lot of Muslim countries around the world, like Saudi Arabia, where it's pretty oppressive. The religion of Islam is very oppressive, particularly on women. I wasn't going to go there, but I said it. It's too late. So if I'm being politically incorrect, forgive me, it's purely intentional. I was a lost kid. Anyway, my sister had left. She moved back to, left home. She was going to get married in Cyprus. So Mum says to me, she could see I was wandering way off track. And she said, "Let's go to Cyprus to your sister's wedding." So I thought, okay, let's do that. Her intention was to break me out of that scene. My intention was, I guess, to break me out of that scene, but I really needed more. I needed to find out more about my roots,
So travel overseas, and that was a pretty significant time because you're on a real journey. Music had become a big part of your life. You'd started being influenced by a lot
Yeah,
of
well,
artists
I
at the
was
time?
playing. I wasn't playing professionally, but I was a musician. I was a musician, and my big influences were Bob Marley and guys like Van Morrison. So their music was very spiritual. Like Bob Marley's music, really spiritual music. Like one love, one heart. Let's get together and feel all right. Give thanks and praise to the Lord and I will feel all right. Yeah, like that. So, but many of his songs were like that. Many. Even like We're Jamming. Hope you like jam. Anyone know that song? No, they don't. That's how old it is. But yeah, so he was. But you see, and Rastafarianism, which Bob Marley music is, even though it was a cult, there was enough of the Word of God in there to penetrate my loneliness. How about that?
So the Word of God, even through musicians like Van Morrison and Bob Marley and Bob Dylan, was starting to have an impact. And then you headed overseas.
Over in Cyprus, that's right.
Again, this sense of wanting that acceptance.
Yeah.
Things weren't
I needed to find my place.
You did. You moved out of home.
Yep.
Like all of your siblings.
Yep.
You headed overseas with the hope of being able to connect with your family.
Yeah.
But that wasn't easy.
That didn't happen either because Mum didn't bring me up speaking Turkish. So in Cyprus, I knew about 10 words. So all I could say was merhaba, nasılsın, which is g'day, how you going, right? And so there was no connection. I couldn't connect with my cousins, with my aunties and my uncles. I could see that they wanted to connect. So there was this big frustration. Anyway, let's go to food again, Mark. So we went to this barbecue, like this is a big Turkish barbecue. We have lamb on the spit roasting over fire, spinning around, fat gristling, crunchy, beautiful, salty meat, amazing. You can thank us, and not just the Turks, but the Middle East for kebabs, because we made them. That's what I grew up on. This was the food I grew. And so it was a great, beautiful barbecue. But afterwards, I was feeling a little bit lonely, way over the other side of the world. And I go for a walk, and this is where my life significantly changes, because it was there that I had a dream, a spiritual dream, and I had a dream about Jesus, but I didn't know it was about Jesus at the time. So I explain in my book that many Muslims around the world see Jesus as a man in white. Have you heard this? They're getting dreams and visions about, Jesus as a man in white. So that's what happened. I walked away from the barbecue, walked up a hill, sat under a tree, and I fell asleep, I must have had a food coma or something. So I'm sitting under this olive tree and I have this dream. So I'll try and quickly get through this because this is quite important. So in this dream, there's this big wide river, wider than the Murrubu River. The thing about the dream, how in dreams that you know stuff, you don't know how you know, but you just know. So the water wasn't made of water, it was made of people. And I knew this was the people of the world. And the current of the river was flowing past me from my right to my left, and I looked up and the people of the world were just forever coming down, and they were flowing past me and they were flowing to my left, and then I was horrified because I saw like Niagara Falls, and they were all going to their death, and I knew that the world was heading to destruction, and which worried me, and it was a very dark scene. Really eerie, dark, almost evil scene. And I looked across to the far side, the far bank, and there was this big rock, probably the size of this room, this auditorium, and there was a big rock, and standing on the rock was the only illuminated thing in the whole of the vision. And there was a man standing, and he was dressed in white robe, and he was illuminated. And out of the big rock, there was a little river that came out by the side of the rock, and it came into the big river, and it caused a glow of light because the river wasn't made of water, it was made of light. And I knew, and what happened was people that came past the glow were sucked up and placed onto the rock, and they were rescued out of this river of death. And I knew that second thing I was horrified about is I knew I was in the river. I realised I was in the river and I knew I was heading to my death. So I start heading over to the rock and I started to, tell people, don't go that way, go this way, this is the way we have to go. And they wouldn't listen to me. And what I noticed is that they all had little horns on their head, like little goat horns, which is not good, right? And they wouldn't listen to me because I had them too. And it was kind of like symbolic, of we're all sinners and we're heading to our death. Isn't that extraordinary when you think about it like that? But I didn't know. It's just all, being placed out before me in this vision. Anyway, I tried to get over there and the vision starts to fade now. And what happened then, I'm getting pretty distressed, is that I didn't know it was Jesus, but his face zoomed in on mine and came really close and he pointed to me and he said, I will help you, I will save you. And then I came out of the vision.
Amazing vision.
Amazing.
And the face that you saw was really significant.
It was significant. Like his eyes were just full of light, life, love, and wow, I just thought that was stunning, yeah.
And that stuck with you.
It stuck with me.
You went to London after that?
Yeah, I did.
And in your heart, you might have had that vision, but there was stuff going on in you. Am I right, Guryel?
Yes, that's
especially
right.
around unforgiveness, and
yes.
especially with some of those challenges of growing up in a dysfunctional home and with your father.
Yeah, my father. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think there was a lot of resentment and anger in my heart. So yes, from Cyprus I go to London, and I see my dad. I hadn't seen him for 10 years. So, and he had a dry cleaner's store, and he had a new family, little babies running around, dirty clothes on the floor that were waiting to go into the dry cleaner's washing machine. And I don't know, when I met Dad, he hugged me and he kissed me like Turks do on each side of my cheek, and his whiskers scratched my cheeks were still soft in those days. But I was kind of angry, Mark, towards my dad and resentful. And especially now, I saw he was making this amazing life with a new family, and I thought, well, why couldn't you have done that for us? Why couldn't you have hung around? But I knew that their fights were awful, so I got it. Anyway, next door to the dry cleaner, here's an up now, okay? Next to the dry cleaner, there was a hardware store. And in the hardware store, there was a young Jamaican kid, because London's full of, West Indians. And they of course, they're the creators of reggae music. So I met this guy called James. He was a preacher's kid, but he was quite nominal in his faith, So we used to hang out, play reggae music, and we became friends. But he could see that there was something missing in my life. And obviously, that was the Lord. Excuse me. And one day, he goes next door to his shop. So Dad's in the dry cleaner. Then there's the hardware where James worked. And then there was a second-hand shop. He goes to the second-hand shop and he finds this little children's Bible, but with amazing pictures in it. Anyway, he gives it to me and he says, read this. And I kind of laughed it off. I just, good on you, James. What, we're going to hold hands and skip off to Sunday school or something? I was pretty, I thought, what are you doing? Anyway, he looks at me really sternly. He was never stern with me, James. He was a hilarious young man. And he said, no, read that. So I was living above the hardware store at this stage. There was an apartment up there. So I went upstairs, and I think there's a picture of James here.
There is, a few years later than that.
Yeah, so this is in 2015, and what I'm talking about happened in about 1981, something like that. So this was a reunion. So the Reverend Cecil Heatley, he baptised me and led me to the Lord. And there's James. What a hilarious, wonderful young man he was. Anyway, so I go upstairs and I put on Bob Marley, and I look in this children's Bible, and there's a picture of Jesus in there, and it was one of those illustrations, you know, like the JWs have like cartoon things, but these images are so real, they look like photographs. Well, it was one of those images. It wasn't a JW book, at least I don't think it was. It was just a children's Bible, New Testament. And there's a picture of Jesus and the face. He was teaching on a rock and he was dressed in white. It was the guy in my dream. It didn't look like his face. It was the face. And I realised, I thought, wow, that guy I saw was Jesus. Didn't know. Opposite page, there was the Lord's Prayer. So he's teaching, it's obviously the Sermon on the Mount, and he's teaching the Lord's Prayer. First words I read are, "Our Father who art in heaven," and that really punched me in the gut. Like, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be amazing if God could be your father? Because Muslims have no concept of God being your father. And I just found that amazing. I thought, here's a father that will never leave you, because my dad had been gone for 10 years. And there he is next door. And it was all just culminating. The Lord was just getting me.
We sang that tonight, actually, in my Father's house.
Yes.
There's a place for me.
That's right.
And that's your story.
That's my story. You know, I really loved when Matt was preaching the other week, and he was talking about the waters, you know, being separated at creation with a firmament, a space, and God makes that space for man. And then, you know, he gave the same illustration leading the Israelites out of Egypt and the walls of water that Moses takes them through. Like, the water was like the chaos, and God makes a way. Like, God was making a way. He'd penetrated my little life, my little lost life, and made a way out and into his kingdom. You know, and he does that, you know. Like, I'm telling you my story, which I'm thankful for, by the way, Mark. But you've got your story, you know. Everyone's got a story, and God, he knows exactly what it's going to take to penetrate your life and to open it up and to reside within us, you know.
We're a living testimony where the Father can father the fatherless.
Yes.
And I know you have a real father, and but for you need to be fathered. And
yeah, we do. All of us do.
We do. And it's a powerful message.
It's kind of politically incorrect these days, you know. But, you know, there's something about, you know, mums are nurturers and dads probably are guiders, you know, and protectors. And if you grow up without that, it does affect us all, you know. It's very important, yeah. And so God becomes my father. James takes me to Cecil's church, which we saw. And Cecil's there. He's just in his reverend clothes in this Anglican church, and he's in robes. And my first impression of him, because he was a bit of a hippie in there, he didn't have any hair, but like all those years ago, he had long hair, and he's playing like a bit like Lockie, you know. And I'm thinking, oh, how cool is this dude? James, why didn't you bring me here before, you know? And I thought, wow, this is cool. And he's singing, Jesus, love is very wonderful. Jesus, love is very wonderful. And I'm thinking, it is wonderful. This is wonderful, you know. And he led me to the... I knocked in his door later because I asked him if I could meet him. And I said, do you accept anyone into your church? Because I didn't know, you know. Like, I think I know, you know. And he said, sure, yeah, come in, you know. And he says, you know, he calls to his wife and, Janet, Roo is here. They called me Roo because they couldn't say Guryel. So they started saying Guru, and then Roo, because I was an Aussie, was kangaroo. So he says, Roo's here, come in, Roo. So I come in, and anyway, weekly we would go through baptismal things, and a class and they would cook me a meal. They showed me the love of Jesus and showed me what it meant to be born again and introduced me to the Father's love.
Amazing. Well, Guryel, we've so appreciated you sharing your story. It takes some vulnerability and some openness to do that. But music has played a big part in your life, and you've written songs. You've been influenced by artists over the years that God's really used to impact you as well. And you've got something you want to share with us tonight.
All right, yeah.
That'd be great, mate.
I've got a little song, ditty about the whole kind of journey, abbreviated.
You got your guitar there? Perfect.
So, hallelujah. What was that? Was that okay? Did you enjoy that?
Let's put our hands together. It's great.
Thank you, Mark, for giving me an opportunity to share just my salvation. Obviously, life's been a lot bigger. And you may know my wife Cheryl and my son Christian, who gets around in the wheelchair.
And for those who are interested, Guryel did actually write a book a few years back that is his story. Obviously, is a bit longer.
My conversion story.
Yeah,
so
it's a bit longer than 20 minutes, 25 minutes, which we've had tonight. And please.
I've got some copies.
You've got some copies, and you can come see Guryel afterwards.
I just want to say, Mark, thank you. And I said this morning, but I intentionally want to just say, I was so thrilled when I found out that you got this job here. You just bring a beautiful sense of assurance to us. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's that fatherliness. I don't know. But it's well appreciated, Mark. And the leadership in this church is just marvellous. It's just beautiful. With Matt, an amazing teacher, like how blessed are we? Just amazing. And Boaz is doing a beautiful job with the worship team. And well, how about this? How about we give them a hand, eh? All right, I'll say goodnight with this. When I was up in London town, I didn't have much money. Said my toes were cold and my clothes had holes and my nose was kind of runny. Wasn't funny. Met a long hair on the street. He said, look, you'd look like you'd like to eat. I said, glass of Coke and a hot dog's fine. He said, well, how about some bread and a glass of wine? I said, lead me on, lead me on, lead me on where you're going. I said my body's tired and my heart's inspired and my hunger's growing. Lead me on, lead me on, lead me on where you're going. I said my body's tired and my heart's inspired and my hunger's growing. He took a loaf of Wonder Bread and then he bowed his head. Said, take the cup, drink it up, my friend. Tasted better than the health foods did. Then he looked into my eyes. I was quite surprised. He said, you're locked inside, but I can set you free. You will live forever if you follow me. I said, lead me on, lead me on, lead me on where you're going. He said, my body's tired and my heart's inspired and my hunger's growing. Lead me on, lead me on, lead me on where you're going. He said, my body's tired and my heart's inspired and my hunger's growing. And it still is. Good night.
That's great. We've really appreciated you tonight, Guryel, and thanks for sharing your song.
Thank you.
And your gift and talent, and I know you're part of our church family, and we love that.
Yeah.